2024, Representative Omar gave remarks at an event in Minneapolis in which she made treasonous statements. Whereas Representative Omar said she has spoken to many Somalians who asked her to intercede for the Somali government by pressuring the United States government into certain actions.
Remarks the gentleman from South Carolina. I have very strong disagreement with a lot of the statements that Representative Omar has made. We've covered most of them. That some people did something is the one that really sticks in my craw pretty strongly. Raises a whole lot of flags for me. I think there are significant amount of justifications to raise.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberty.
The House floor.
Can you believe that? Some people did something. That's how Representative Ilhan Omar described the 9/11 attacks. Some people. No mention of the lives lost. No respect for the families torn apart. Just a cold and casual dismissal of one of America's darkest days. But that's not where the madness stops. In January 2024, Omar took it even further, openly siding with foreign interests over the safety and well-being of the American people. She said that the U.S. government should only act according to the demands of Somali Americans. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like pure loyalty to me.
Recognized.
Censuring Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. Whereas elected members of Congress take an oath to bear true faith and allegiance to the United States without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Whereas Representative Ilhan Omar took an oath of allegiance to the United States upon becoming a citizen, declaring, "I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen." Whereas on January 27, 2024, Representative Omar gave remarks at an event in Minneapolis in which she made treasonous statements. Whereas Representative Omar said she has spoken to many Somalians who asked her to intercede for the Somali government by pressuring the United States government into certain actions. Whereas Representative Omar assured the Somalians she spoke to, the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. Whereas Representative Omar continued, "For as long as I am in U.S. Congress, Somalia will never be in danger. Its waters will not be stolen by Ethiopia or others. Sleep in comfort knowing I am here to protect the interest of Somalia from inside the U.S. system." Whereas George Washington warned in his farewell address of 1796 to guard against the impostures of pretended patriotism, and further declared citizens by birth or choice of a common country, that country has a right to concentrate your affections. The name of American, which belongs to you in your national capacity, must always exalt the just pride of patriotism more than any appellation derived from local discriminations. Whereas these statements by Representative Omar clearly violate the oath she took as an elected member of Congress to defend and protect the United States Constitution. Whereas Representative Omar has exhibited the treasonous tendencies George Washington warned about, and her actions must be condemned by all members of Congress who adhere to the oath they took upon assuming office. And whereas by openly admitting her efforts to advance Somalia's interest using her position as a United States representative, Representative Omar has revealed herself to be a foreign agent acting on behalf of a foreign government. Now, therefore be it resolved that Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota be censured. Representative Ilhan Omar forthwith present herself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure. Representative Ilhan Omar be censured with the public reading of this resolution by the Speaker, and Representative Ilhan Omar be and is hereby removed from the Committee of the Budget and the Committee on Education and the Workforce.
I do associate myself with the remarks of the gentleman from Kentucky, but also the gentleman from South Carolina, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, the gentlelady, all the remarks that we've been talking about over here. And I appreciate the spirit of the remarks from the gentleman from Colorado. Would note that we're here for a very obvious reason. The door was opened, and now we're dealing with that. And the door shouldn't have been opened. I'm reminded when I was in the Senate Judiciary Committee in 2005, and Miguel Estrada was being filibustered by the Democrat majority at the time. And we know why. We know this because a memo that said very specifically that he was being filibustered because he was an Hispanic conservative was found, but then shoved aside. We couldn't talk about it because it was found on a server, and they said, we shouldn't get it. There's a whole lot of backstory on that. But there was a lot of drama around that. There were 7 judges being held up: Priscilla Owen, Janice Rogers Brown, because she's black. That was all happening. We just sweep that aside. And you fast forward, and Bill Frist was being pressured to deploy the nuclear option.
All right, so now that you've seen the clip, let's break this down. First things first, Ilhan Omar's loyalty is in question, and honestly, it's a huge problem. Let's rewind for a second. Omar claims that she spoke to a group of Somali Americans who wanted her to pressure the U.S. government into serving Somalia's interests. And she promised them she would do just that. She said the U.S. government would follow their orders. That's not just a slip of the tongue, that's an admission of divided loyalty, and it's deeply troubling for anyone who believes in the sovereignty of the United States. We've all heard of politicians with conflicting interests, but Omar's actions go beyond political disagreements. She outright said that she would prioritize Somalia's needs over the United States. And let's be clear, folks, that's not just problematic. It's treasonous. As someone who loves this country, I have to say, how can a congresswoman pledge allegiance to the U.S., but simultaneously serve the interests of another country? That's not what our leaders should be doing. And the worst part is, she's not even hiding it. She's being upfront about it. She openly admitted that Somali Americans should be the ones to dictate U.S. foreign policy. That's unacceptable. Let's talk about the infamous 9/11 remark for a moment. Omar's comment, "Some people did something," is still ringing in my ears. It's been years since she made that statement, but the damage it caused is still there. For anyone who lived through 9/11, who lost someone, or who saw firsthand the devastation of that day, those words were an insult. They weren't just a casual mistake. Omar's lack of respect for the lives lost that day was disturbing. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. Many Americans are still furious over how she minimized such a massive tragedy. But it's not just her words, it's her pattern of behavior. She's consistently dismissed key events in American history, downplayed tragedies, and failed to honor the people who gave their lives to protect this nation. That's not patriotism. If she had any real respect for this country, she would understand the gravity of what she said. Instead, she continues to minimize the pain that 9/11 caused to millions of people. And that's something we simply cannot overlook. And this brings us to the censure motion introduced by Marjorie Taylor Greene and Chip Roy. This isn't just about Ilhan Omar making some careless remarks. This is about national security and loyalty to this country. When you swear an oath to the Constitution, you are committing to put the United States first, no matter what. And if you fail to do that, then you need to be held accountable. Greene and Roy introduced this censure motion because they believe Omar's actions from her comments about 9/11 to her support for foreign interests undermine the trust the American people have in their elected officials. And frankly, I couldn't agree more. This isn't just a difference in policy or opinion. This is a direct challenge to the very core of what it means to be an American. When Omar says the U.S. government should only act in the best interests of Somali Americans, she's completely disregarding her duty to represent the people of Minnesota and all Americans, above all else. Now, some people are going to tell you that this is just political theater. They're going to argue that censure is just a way for conservatives to score political points. But here's the truth. This isn't about partisanship. This is about loyalty. This is about whether or not we want politicians who put America first, or ones who are willing to sell us out for political gain. When Greene and Roy invoked George Washington's farewell address, they weren't just giving a history lesson, they were making a point. Washington warned about the dangers of divided loyalty. He understood that allowing foreign influence to seep into our politics would weaken our country from within. And that's exactly what Ilhan Omar is doing. She's allowing foreign interests to dictate U.S. policy, and that's a dangerous game to play. I know the left is going to try to paint this as an attack on free speech. They'll argue that we can't punish people for what they say, even if it's controversial. But let me make one thing clear. This isn't about punishing free speech. This is about accountability. Omar took an oath to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. She didn't take an oath to represent Somalia, and if she's using her position to advance the interests of another country, then she is betraying that oath. This isn't just about her remarks either. It's about a pattern of behavior that shows a disregard for American values. From her support for soft policies on crime to her alignment with globalist agendas, Omar has repeatedly shown that she's more concerned with promoting foreign interests than protecting American citizens. Now, I know some people on the left will accuse me of being partisan here. They'll say, oh, this is just a right-wing attack. But let me ask you this. If Ilhan Omar had been a conservative and said the same things about Israel or any other country, would the left be so quick to defend her? Would they just brush off these statements as political rhetoric? I don't think so. This isn't about being a Democrat or a Republican. It's about loyalty to this country, and that's why I'm supporting the censure motion. We need to send a clear message that we will not tolerate divided loyalty in Congress. We will not stand by while our elected officials compromise American interests for the benefit of foreign powers. If Omar is allowed to continue serving in Congress, then what message are we sending to future generations of Americans? That loyalty to our country doesn't matter? That you can serve two masters? So, what's next? Well, we need to keep pushing for accountability. We need to continue supporting leaders like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Chip Roy, who are standing up for American values. We need to demand that all of our elected officials put the interests of the United States ahead of everything else because that's what they promised to do when they took their oaths of office. That's it for today's video. I want to hear from you. Do you think Ilhan Omar's loyalty is a real issue? Should she be censured? Leave a comment below, like the video, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and remember, America first.